Hello, and welcome to the online orientation portal for Title IX. My name is Larissa Cortez, and I serve as the Director of Equal Opportunity and Diversity and the Title IX Coordinator here at TAMU. As the Title IX Coordinator, I am in charge of overseeing the university's response to reports of sexual misconduct. Another really important part of my job includes educating and training the campus community about the policies and procedures we have in place to protect students. So today I'm going to be briefly going over what Title IX is and how it ultimately keeps you safer here on campus, and then I'll also be giving you guys a background about what the Title IX process looks like here at TAMU. So let's go ahead and begin. So Title IX, what is it and what does it do? Title IX is a federal civil rights law that prohibits sex-based discrimination and includes all institutions receiving federal funding. The law was initially passed in 1972, and to give you guys a bit of a background, around this time there really were a number of barriers in place specifically for women to gain access to college. For example, sometimes women were not allowed into certain colleges or maybe certain programs like engineering programs or medical schools, and even when women were able to get access to college, they sometimes were not able to be readmitted if they were married. So yes, a number of barriers in place for women to gain access. So this helped eliminate some of those barriers. And then later on, we see the law addressing the inequity in sports, with women not getting access to the same kind of resources that men did. So it really afforded this equity for women in sports and dramatically increased the amount of women participating in college sports programs. And perhaps around the late 90s and early 2000s, we see the courts reinterpreting Title IX to also include sexual harassment. So that's probably what it's most known for today, how colleges and universities respond to reports of harassment. So throughout the years, the law has kind of been fortified and strengthened by other pieces of legislation, and those include the ones listed on the bottom of the slide: the Clery Act, which I'll go over in the next slide, the Violence Against Women Act, and the Campus Safe Act, and then different legislation across the states. So all these laws really work together and fortify the law. Okay, before I jump into this side, I want to go ahead and clarify something. I know I talked a lot about women and Title IX, but keep in mind the law applies both to men and women, but women did experience a majority of inequity in the 60s and 70s, so I want to go ahead and clarify that. It applies to both men and women. So jumping into the next slide, the Clery Act. The Clery Act is actually named after Jean Clery, who was a freshman student at Lehigh University around the 1980s. And during her freshman year, she was raped and murdered in her campus dorm room. Her parents worked really hard to find out, what caused her death and if it could have been prevented. And what they found out is that Lehigh University had a number of violent crimes occur on their campus, and they said that had they known about it, they would have never allowed their daughter to attend. So they worked really hard to pass the Clery Act. And the Clery Act requires that all campuses and universities publish crime statistics, and it will be available to the public or anybody wanting to know how safe the university is. They do that on a daily basis. They do a crime log so the university and anybody else knows what crimes did occur on that campus. Another part of the law includes the Federal Campus Sexual Assault Victims Bill of Rights. And I kind of want to draw your attention to the last bullet point. It says survivors shall be notified of options for changing academic and living situations. We want you to know that not only is it required by law, but anybody experiencing an assault or harassment will have access to protective measures and interim accommodations. And they can include changes in living situations, so perhaps you want to change out of the dorms, you want to move dorms or get into a dorm. And when it comes to academics, we want to also support you in that. If you are having trouble because of what happened, we want to help. We want to get extensions for you in classes or makeup. So we want to do anything we can to try to ensure you're able to continue your education. So in this slide, we're going to go ahead and watch a video, and it was actually produced by the A&M University System, and it's Title IX student training video. So I'll go into further detail on the types of things that are considered sexual harassment. So different types of sexual harassment will be discussed in this video, and it also includes students talking about them. So students from other A&M schools will go ahead and break down things that are considered violations of our policy.
1 in 4 women will survive a sexual assault or attempted sexual assault by the time she graduates from college.
Approximately 1 in 10 males will survive a sexual assault or attempted sexual assault while in college.
It happened to my friend.
It happened to my sister.
It happened to me.
It can happen to you.
One is too many. You are not alone. Report.
Title IX is a federal civil rights law that prohibits sex discrimination in education. It's not just about sports. It also addresses sexual harassment, sex-based discrimination, and sexual violence. Title IX protections extend to all students and employees, regardless of sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, full or part-time status on campus or online.
Sexual harassment, sexual discrimination, and sexual violence is also prohibited by A&M system policy and your school's conduct rules.
Sexual harassment is unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature, including sexual violence. Sexual harassment includes unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal, nonverbal, or physical conduct of a sexual nature.
Unwelcome means that an individual did not request or invite it, and considered the conduct to be undesirable or offensive. Submission to the conduct or failure to complain does not always mean that the conduct was welcome.
Sexual violence refers to physical sexual acts perpetrated against a person's will or when a person is incapable of giving consent.
Consent means words or clear actions by a person indicating a freely given agreement to perform a particular sexual act.
Consent must be communicated between both partners in order to participate in sexual activity or behavior. It is the responsibility of the person who wants to engage in sexual activity to ensure the consent of their partner.
It happened to my god sister.
Silence, lack of protest, or no resistance does not mean consent. Being in a current relationship or having had past sexual relationship does not indicate consent.
Consent must be present throughout the sexual activity. At any time, a participant can communicate that he or she no longer wants to continue the activity. If there is confusion as to whether anyone has consented or continues to consent to sexual activity, stop the activity until the confusion can be clearly resolved.
If the use or threatened use of violence or physical force is present, you do not have consent.
If the person is unconscious or physically or mentally unable to resist, does not understand the nature of the situation, or is unaware of what is occurring, you do not have consent.
If you have intentionally incapacitated a person by giving them drugs or other substances without their knowledge, you do not have consent.
Speak up when someone discusses plans to take sexual advantage of another person.
Confront someone who is trying to hit on, seclude, make out with, or even have sex with someone who is drunk.
When something is out of your control, call the police just for safe measures.
A number of different acts fall into the category of sexual violence, including rape, sexual assault, sexual battery, sexual abuse, and sexual coercion.
One form of sexual harassment occurs when an educational decision or benefit is dependent on an individual's submission to unwelcome sexual conduct. Unwelcome sexual conduct can also create a hostile environment when it is so severe, persistent, and/or pervasive that it unreasonably interferes with an individual's ability to participate in or benefit from an educational program. Sexual harassment and violence can be carried out by school employees, fellow students, students from other schools, or third parties. When a school knows or reasonably should have known of possible sexual harassment or violence, it must take immediate and appropriate steps to investigate what occurred, regardless of whether or not there is a criminal investigation by university police or other law enforcement authority.
It happened to my friend.
About 90% of sexual assaults on college students are perpetrated by someone they know.
Your university also prohibits the offenses of domestic violence, dating violence, and stalking.
In Texas, domestic or family violence is an act against another member of the family or household that is intended to result in physical harm, bodily injury, assault or sexual assault, or the threat of which reasonably causes fear of such harm.
In Texas, dating violence means an act other than a defensive measure to protect oneself by an individual against a victim with whom there is or was a romantic or intimate relationship or marriage, and that is intended to result in physical harm, bodily injury, assault, or sexual assault, or that is a threat that reasonably results in a fear of such harm. It can happen in straight or gay relationships.
Under Texas law, stalking is knowingly engaging in conduct that one reasonably believes is threatening to harm them, a member of their family or household, or their property.
Title IX also protects students and employees from retaliation.
Retaliation is intimidating, threatening, coercing, or in any way discriminating against an individual because of the person's informal or formal complaint or participation in an investigation or proceedings related to sexual violence or other civil rights concerns.
Your school must process all complaints of sexual violence involving its students or employees, regardless of where the contact occurred. If the contact occurred in the context of an education program or activity, or if it has continuing effects on the campus or an off-campus education program or activity, it will be handled the same way as if it occurred on campus.
It could happen to me.
Report.
Report.
Speak up when people use racist, sexist, homophobic, or other harmful language.
All Texas A&M University System employees are required to report incidents of sexual harassment, including sexual violence, that they experience, observe, or which are made known to them. Only certain employees can provide confidential guidance, such as professional medical personnel, pastoral or religious clergy, attorneys, and certain sexual assault advocates. If you're not sure if someone can maintain your confidentiality, ask before you talk to them.
Reports of sexual harassment, including sexual violence, may be made to your school's Title IX coordinator or deputy coordinator, the University Police Department, or other law enforcement authority, a crisis hotline, and/or the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights in Dallas. The sooner you report the incident, the sooner you can get help, and the quicker the university or other authority can take action to stop the conduct and prevent its recurrence.
If you see a friend doing something shady, say something.
Whoever you may choose to report an incident to, the information will be kept private to the greatest extent possible.
Your school has established procedures for handling complaints of sexual discrimination, sexual harassment, and sexual violence.
While an investigation is underway, the university will offer you such assistance as counseling, academic and housing options, and additional security. Schools can also issue a no-contact directive to prevent the accused from approaching or interacting with you.
If a sexual assault survivor requests that the school not take action against a violator, the school may be limited in its ability to fully respond to the incident. In order to provide a safe environment for all employees and students, the school may need to take action anyway in cases involving violence, threat, predation, pattern, or weapons.
Employees who are found to have violated Title IX are subject to discipline and up to and including termination. Students who are found to have violated Title IX are also subject to disciplinary measures, including suspension and expulsion from their program.
It could happen to you. If you have been assaulted or subjected to an attempted assault, seek medical care for physical injuries and to screen for sexually transmitted diseases in pregnancy. If possible, do not shower, clean up, or change clothes, as evidence may be collected.
If you have experienced trauma, your first feeling may be relief to be alive, followed by stress, fear, and anger.
It was not your fault.
It was not your fault.
It was not your fault.
You may find it difficult to stop thinking about what happened. You may react strongly to sounds and sights and feel stress. Emotional and physical reactions have nothing to do with personal weakness.
No estás solo.
You are not alone.
You are not alone.
If someone you know has been sexually assaulted, be supportive and listen to them. Tell them they are not responsible for what happened.
Make sure they have a safe place to stay. Go with him or her to the health center, hospital, counseling center, police department, or Title IX office.
Warning signs of a victim of abusive behavior include isolation, frequent injuries explained as accidents, and missing work, school, or social activities without explanation. Report any suicidal thoughts, threats, or attempts to your school's behavioral intervention team.
You can reduce your risk of assault by not allowing yourself to be isolated with a person you do not know or trust. Communicate your limits firmly and directly. If you say no, say it like you mean it. Avoid giving mixed messages and back up your words with a firm voice and clear body language. Don't assume someone will automatically know how you feel or will eventually get the message without you having to say anything.
80 to 90% of sexual assaults on college campuses involve alcohol.
Only 2% of incapacitated sexual assault survivors and 13% of forcible rape survivors report crime to campus or local law enforcement.
If you were assaulted while you are drunk or high, it doesn't mean that it is your fault. It also doesn't mean that no one will believe you. In fact, you may not remember much of what actually happened. Your school may waive student conduct rule violations, such as underage drinking, for your report and/or cooperation with the Title IX investigation.
If your friend is drunk or high, offer to give them a ride home.
In the end, eliminating sexual assaults on campus is a community responsibility. You may be a bystander to events that could lead to a sexual assault. If you see someone in trouble or someone pressuring another person, try to intervene in a safe way. Ask if they are okay, create a distraction, and help the person remove themselves from the situation. Contact the person's friends, or if the situation is serious, call the police.
Report incidents so that we can stop sexual violence on campus, because one is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
One is too many.
One is
One
too many.
is too many.
One 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 is too many. You are not alone. Report.
This slide provides you with some of the highlights of our process. It's not the process in its entirety, but definitely hits the most important points. So here at TAMU, everyone has the right to file a complaint. Just keep note that it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll launch a formal investigation. It could just mean that we have it documented for our records should we need to refer back to it in the future. Everyone has the right to due process, and the way that we demonstrate due process here at TAMU is giving everyone involved 3 days before any kind of interview, and then knowing what they're accused of and being able to submit any witnesses or evidence. For alcohol use amnesty, this is definitely something I also want to draw your attention to. This is just to encourage reporting. So perhaps someone is hesitant to report that they've been involved in an assault or they've witnessed an assault because they were, underage drinking. Keep in mind when you do report this and you are the person who experienced the assault or witnessed it, you will not be charged for that particular student conduct violation. Because ultimately we want you to get the help that you need, and we don't want to, get you in trouble for that kind of thing. So keep in mind this only applies to the person who experienced the assault or the harassment or the person who witnessed it. And when it comes to our evidentiary standard, we do use the preponderance of the evidence, which is more likely than not. So on a percentage scale, that's about 51% likely that something happened. This differs a little bit from what's seen in criminal court. For all you Law and Order fans, they use a different evidentiary standard. They use beyond a reasonable doubt. So on the percentage scale, that's about 99% likely that something happened. So it's a bit of a different standard, but keep in mind, in the criminal setting, they have the ability to throw you in jail, take away certain liberties from you, which is not what we can do here. So when it comes to the sanctions, this is the kind of things that we can impose on students who violate our policy. So the most extreme, of course, being expulsion and suspension for our more severe violations. And most recently, we've also made some updates to our policy. So now students may have the ability to participate in programs jeopardized. So please keep in mind that there are serious consequences for violating our policy. When it comes to the reduction of risk, we definitely have a few recommendations. First of all, practice responsible drinking. And of course, if you're not of age, do not, partake in drinking. Be aware of and adhere to your limits when it comes to alcohol. Alcohol has the ability to lower your inhibitions, so we definitely want to be wary of what our limits are when it does come to alcohol. Never leave your drink unattended. We don't know how how the drink has been tampered with, what has been dropped in it. If you do leave a drink, just leave it there, get another one. Never accept drinks from others. This kind of goes back to the last point. We don't know how it was prepared. We don't know what someone has slipped in it. We definitely want to be aware of what's in our alcohol, and if we don't see it being prepared, then it's probably not good to partake in that. Don't do drugs. Of course, it's very obvious, a very common sense kind of point. Safety in numbers. This is a time for you as students to get to know each other, to go places together. Definitely try to go places together. If you go anywhere alone, do try to let a buddy know so they know that when you arrive someplace safely. Also, take advantage of technology. There's a number of apps you can use to try to keep you safe here on campus. And we also have a flyer here in our office, so if you guys are interested, just stop by Killam 159 and we can definitely pass out a flyer to you with all the safety apps available. And of course, make smart choices. You guys are intelligent college students. Let's make smart choices and increase our safety overall. There is no right or wrong way to respond to an act of sexual misconduct. It is most important to do what is right for you. If you or someone you know has been assaulted, consider the following steps. Step 1, get to a safe place. This can be an area where there's more people, where you have access to a phone, a friend's house, or the police department. Your next step can also be to call police. From any campus phone, you can dial 2911 and this gets you to the TAMU Police Department, or of course calling 911 from your cell phone. Next is seek medical attention. In the ER, doctors and nurses can treat injuries. A medical exam will help collect evidence in case you decide now or at a later time to pursue criminal charges or legal action. If you are interested in a medical exam, it's really vital that you do not clean yourself, wash yourself in any way. This involves preserving the evidence. Once you do any of these things like bathing, eating, or drinking, you risk contaminating any evidence that can be collected. So that's why it's vital that you wait till the medical exam and then you can go ahead and do what you need to do. Next, seek free and confidential counseling. Talk to someone you trust. There are people on campus and in the community who are trained to help you cope with the experience and examine your options. Next, notify the Title IX coordinator. Anyone who feels that they've been the victim of sexual misconduct is encouraged to bring it to the attention of the Title IX coordinator. I can provide interim remedies and measures to support all individuals involved in these situations and to protect the safety of the campus community through these measures. In addition, consider what type of legal action you want to take. They can include no contact orders or protective orders. As you speak with different TAMU staff, you may be concerned about what information will be kept confidential. Licensed health professionals, such as medical and mental health providers in the Student Health Services and Student Counseling Office, have the legal privilege of keeping your information confidential by not sharing it with anyone else without your permission. It is important to understand that privacy and confidentiality have distinct meanings. Privacy generally means that information related to a report of misconduct will be shared only with a limited circle of individuals who need to know in order to assist in the investigation, resolution, and related issues. Information that you share with TAMU staff, such as RAs, coaches, residence hall directors, and police officers, will need to be shared with TAMU's Title IX coordinator. If you ever want assistance and don't want it to be referred to our office, that is perfectly fine with us. We certainly understand. Contact student counseling or other licensed healthcare and counseling professionals who can ensure your confidentiality. Student counseling is knowledgeable of the Title IX process and has access to the same resources that we do. You can seek their advice if you are hesitant to report and would like some guidance before jumping in. Here at TAMU, we have a bystander intervention training program called Green Dot, and bystander intervention is refusing passivity and safely and actively providing help to a person in need. So in a nutshell, Green Dot helps its participants explore the barriers that prevent them from acting. So whether that be fear or indifference or maybe thinking somebody else will act before them, it really helps them explore the things that prevent people from acting and gives them the tools necessary to act in a way that's safe. So every fall and spring semester, we offer Green Dot trainings to employees and students. So those of you who are staying in the dorms, we have slipped the schedule into your welcome package. So if you are interested, we do encourage you to sign up. Dust Devils, speak up. Do your part, report it. At TAMU, creating and maintaining a respectful and safe campus community is a priority. For this, we encourage students, faculty, and staff to report any Title IX related incidents. When it comes to reporting, you do have a couple options. The first bullet point is our anonymous reporting site, tamu.edu/reportit. Reports made through this portal do not require a name or email. You can also report personally in my office, Killam 159, or via phone or email. Reports can also be made to Dr. Lindberg, the Deputy Title IX Coordinator. Everyone also can file a report with the Office of Civil Rights. I also would like to reiterate your confidential resources. As I said a couple slides ago, any disclosures made to these departments do not trigger an automatic report to the Title IX Coordinator. If something is life-threatening or an emergency, we encourage you to call police right away. Any student who has questions or concerns about their rights under Title IX is encouraged to contact the university's Title IX Coordinator. This concludes our presentation. Dust Devils, I wish you the best this academic year.